Hey there, folks. I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and it's a bit of a messy, short transitional week. Hey, these things happen, and it's Billboard BREAKDOwn.
I don't remember.
So yes, I am comfortable calling this transitional. Otherwise pretty slow, but given we're likely going to get a Gunna album bomb next week, that means it's kind of tough to put a ton of stock in what's going to stick around or last, even if there are changes that did catch me a little bit off guard in what's sticking around, what's leaving, and what seems to be gaining speed. Although in that last group, it's going to be tough to determine what's going to actually last, as you would expect. Sadly, it's also expected that the top 10 did not move that much, and that starts with Last Night by Morgan Wallen, which is firmly entrenched at number 1. At this point, I can say the radio's starting to slow down, but it's got so much inertia there and it rules streaming, it's gonna need to take a bigger name to smash through across multiple channels. And truth be told, I don't know who that's gonna be. Olivia Rodrigo, maybe, but again, no guarantee. Then we got Flowers by Miley Cyrus picking up a spot to number 2. Apparently there was a pop radio recalibration that gave this its last bit of staying power, but again, I don't really see this sticking around that much longer, especially as Fast Car by Luke Combs rose up to number 3 with a really strong radio surge and streaming that is absolutely competitive. It was damn near one spot higher, would have matched my prediction. Hell, it overtook Calm Down by Rima and Selena Gomez at number 4, but that's not really surprising. It's got better radio, but the streaming lags considerably, more a comment on the margins than anything else. Next we got All My Life by Lil Durk featuring J. Cole, comfortably holding at number 5. Again, better streaming as the radio is racing to catch up, and it is moving relatively quickly. And you know, while we're here, Favorite Song by 2C also picked up a spot to number 6. Slightly weaker streaming, but enough radio stability to hold up at least over Kill Bill by SZA at number 7, which is absolutely on its way out. Then we got the pickups for Creepin' by Metro Boomin, 21 Savage and The Weeknd to number 8, even as it's bleeding the radio, and Karma by Taylor Swift featuring Ice Spice at number 9, as it surges on the radio, but the streaming is starting to give up. I chalk more of their positional gains, though, to Ella Bella Sola by Eslabon Armado and Peso Pluma sinking down to number 10. The radio never caught on, and it seems like streaming is starting to ebb back just a little bit. At least on the margins. Now that will neatly take us to our losers and our dropouts, where in the latter category, there were a couple surprises. No, I'm not really happy that Human by Cody Johnson could never really get going, so of course it's gone. But AMG by Gabito Ballesteros, Peso Pluma, and Nathaniel Cano is also gone after 20 weeks on the Hot 100, and it looks like it's just gonna be on the borderline of missing the year-end list for 2023. And I reckon that might wind up more common for a lot of the regional Mexican songs beyond isolated crossovers. It's going to be fascinating to watch for the rest of the year as they mostly have streaming, but will that be enough? Now as for our losers, well, we have the Metro Boomin Across the Spider-Verse album bomb cuts fading away, like All the Way Live with Future and Lil Uzi Vert at 92, and Hummingbird with James Blake at 100, but truth be told, a lot of our losses predominantly came from debuts. Put It On the Floor Again by Lotto featuring Cardi B slipped down to 29, Popular by The Weeknd played by Cardi and Madonna fell hard to 72, Good. Ocean Spray by Moneybagg Yo hit 88, Save Me by Jelly Roll featuring Lainey Wilson hit 96, and Bread and Butter by Gunna fell down to 81. That one's gonna rebound big next week, count on it. Outside of those, Pound Town 2 by Sexy Red, Nicki Minaj, and Kay Keith slid after losing their little sales boost down to 86. Thank God by Kane and Caitlin Brown fell to 50, comfortably on its way out, having notched the year-end list spot. And Stand By Me by Lil Durk and Morgan Wallen fell down to 41, because maybe there actually is a higher power that is helping restore a fraction of America's taste. Also, the streaming is falling and there's no radio support. It's not surprising. Now for the returns and gains. And they're an odd group, I've got to say. Again, with the album bomb coming from Gunna, I don't expect any of our returns to really stick around, so with Too Many Nights by Metro Boomin, Future, and Don Toliver at 95, Yandel 150 by Yandel and Fied at 97, and I Wrote the Book by Morgan Wallen at 99, I do not expect these to last. But I also didn't expect Trust Fall by Pink Pink to rise off its return and going up to 82. Same case for Jaded by Miley Cyrus, rising to 85. Then off the debut, Peaches and Eggplants by Young Nudie featuring 21 Savage continued its viral boost to 74. Again, this is where I'm kind of happy that the Gunna album bomb is going to do a number here across streaming. Probably will help knock it back, along with What It Is Block Boy by Doechii and Kodak Black, up to 60 now. Hell, maybe it might even knock back Baby Don't Hurt Me by David Guetta, Anne Marie, and Coi Leray from 71. Then we had a couple country gains. Next Thing You Know by Jordan Davis saw a nice boost to 28. I reckon it's probably going to peak soon. Bury Me in Georgia by Kane Brown is getting a sustained push to 64. And Your Heart of Mine by John Party is looking to pick up some traction to 67. Nice to see. But the one I want to keep an eye on is People by Libyanka, mostly because the radio is quietly throwing something behind this song, and I want to see if it can weather the storm that's coming next week. Only small gains, but they are there. But that storm is again next week. In the meantime, we got a pretty short list of new arrivals, so let's start with number 93, The Hillbillies by Baby Keem and Kendrick Lamar.
Possess your girl, baby, I'm high profile. Don't ever tell them you met me, girl. They gon' think that you rep me, girl. 5'7", I'm messy, girl.
This is one of those cases where the discourse around the song is honestly kind of more interesting than the track itself, with a lot of folks referencing how the song appears to utilize Drake's flow from Sticky and Baby Keem's flow, and there are some thoughts that this tension is rekindling between Drake and Kendrick about 7 years too late. That combined with the groove and the blurry Bon Iver sample, it seemed to spark some conversation for a couple of days that didn't really circle that much around the song, which has left me a little bit underwhelmed compared to other collabs between the cousins here. I think a lot of it surrounds that hook, which feels a little bit flat to me, lacking some of that expressive energy that I know both these guys can usually bring. All the soccer references and low-key fashion and international travel and bragging work, but Baby Keem keeps going on to focus more on women, and even as they trade bars back and forth, it's not quite as smooth as it could be, at least conceptually. So yeah, it might be an interesting moment, and if the beef with Drake heats up, it's going to be fascinating to consider in retrospect. But as of now, I guess it's cool. I'm not going to return to this much. Number 89, Truck Bed by Hardy.
Guess you could say I got what I deserve, 'cause I woke up on the wrong side of the truck bed this morning.
Whereas I wasn't planning to return to this at all. I knew that because of Wait in the Truck, that was a success, that Hardy's career was going to stick around, at least behind the scenes, but the backlash and the bad buzz around his worst album earlier this year, it had me convinced that he had probably hit the wall. So, color me shocked that he decided to push a song from the rock side of his double album, and it's easily one of the worst tracks here. I guess he thought it could probably work with the whole country trap approach that Morgan Wallen has kept moving this year, but what is it with those horrible weedy synths that don't match or blend with anything? Nor does that trap skitter or his god-awful attempt at hollering hard rock on the final hook with the noisier guitars replacing that badly tuned liquid warble throughout the rest of the song. If the track is meant to sound miserable and hungover, I think it succeeds a bit too well, but it's also the sort of headache that I sure as shit don't want. And then there's the content, where Hardy will go out and drink too hard. He's not let back into the house, so he sleeps in his truck. And by the bridge, he is threatening to shoot this girl who locked him out the next morning. I mean, it's not a healthy response to the presumed breakup, buddy. I mean, I get why someone at his label is looking to salvage something and why they might be pushing this as a single, especially with some of the sonic Morgan Wallen parallels. But even at his most downbeat and sarcastic, Morgan Wallen has charisma that Hardy does not have. In other words, this friggin' blows. Next. Number 68, PLEBADA by Alfa and Peso Pluma. Okay, let me walk you through this. Y'all should know Peso Pluma by now, but you'll only recognize Alfa from the Latin charts as a guy who works in dembow and Latin trap. The former a genre from the Dominican Republic with roots in dancehall. It's kind of similar to reggaeton, but it's got a much faster percussive groove. Certainly has a different feel to the track. The rattling snares, the eerie melodies, that rounded bass, the farty synths and horns. It's trying to create this sense of violent menace, even as the vocal pickups sound painfully compressed compressed and nasal, especially Peso Pluma's. Alfa seems at least more descriptively nasty from what I can translate, but given how repetitive the hook feels, the most I get from this is Peso Pluma continuing to dabble with his sounds outside of his own and be very loose with his cosign. I'm not always sure that's a good thing. Just saying. Number 48, Take Two by BTS. It's kind of fascinating just how quickly BTS becomes, well, ignorable when the sales are de-emphasized on Billboard. I gotta say, they topped the digital sales charts this week with this 10th anniversary song while the group's on hiatus, and they can barely only crack the top 50. But honestly, for this song, it kind of makes sense. It's a mid-tempo pop track leaning on hazy acoustic and electric guitar and a pretty languid, if well-developed bass line as the band trades vocal passages describing a love song that could very easily be directed at a hope for their fanbase sticking around for the next arc of their career. Now, for what it's worth, given that I've actually covered more solo projects from BTS, I can recognize their individual voices way more quickly these days. That adds a bit more character than I expected, even if I wouldn't really call myself a fan. But I can also tell this is predominantly pitched for the ARMY as a song that's going to hold them over. So for that, it's fine for what it is. Kind of reminds me a little of Life Goes On, but it doesn't really stick much for me. That's all. And finally, number 43, Dial Drunk by Noah Kahan.
Your name is my emergency phone call, honey. Yeah. Ring and ring, even the cops thought you were on for hanging up. I dialed drunk, I dialed drunk, I died for you.
I mean, called it. Now, for those of you who don't know, I reviewed Noah Kahan on my main channel last year, and while I did not like his album Stick Season at all, I predicted that on tunes and accessibility alone, if he was managed properly, he could be a folk pop superstar. Now that he's got his viral breakthrough, proving that everyone mocking late 2000s, early 2010s stomp clap folk pop online, they do not speak for the silent majority who eat this shit up. And you know what? To his credit, this is a song that I did not cover from his deluxe album. It's shockingly good. If anything, the comparison that leapt to mind immediately is Little Lion Man. It ramps up the tempo to match the banjo picking. It gives the groove a little bit more electric muscle. It cranks a big crescendo through that bridge that leans on stacking up the vocal harmonies that sound really good. And it's also about a man on a downward spiral with enough dry sarcasm to cut the earnestness and be somewhat apologetic, but also come across as possessive and creepy if you think a little bit too hard about it. I should stress this is not better than Little Lion Man. The hook and crescendo just do not go as hard. Marcus Mumford is a better singer than Noah Kahan, and the more basic, straightforward storytelling of this guy getting pulled over by the cops for driving drunk, and him calling an ex to plead for some sort of help as the exasperated disbelief of said cops around him, it doesn't have that same poetic flair. But I also know that by my fourth listen, this had grown on me enough to know that if I add it to my karaoke list, it's gonna work, it's gonna go off. So yeah, guess Kahan found a good one. And given that this is already peaked higher than Little Lion Man ever did in the Hot 100, just watch this be huge. But you know what, we'll see after Gunna next week. That's the big disruptor. For now, it actually is the best of the week for me, while Truck Bed by Hardy runs away with the worst. Kind of ironic, as being a drunken mess near your car seems to be the running themes of both tracks. Clearly summer is now in full swing. Next week we do have that album bomb. We'll have to see what survives, so stay tuned for that. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.